is there. Justin Allgaier is there.
Oh!
Will there be contact? There is. There goes Gray.
Ridiculous, absurd, stupid, needs help. I don't really know what else, other words I can add on. Yeah, that was the finish to the Xfinity race. So in case you missed it, the Xfinity Series raced at Martinsville today. Last night we had a Truck Series race, and that race got a little bit crazy, but it was nothing compared to what happened tonight. Here's your caution chart. Yeah, that alone should tell you if you did not watch this race. There was a post-race confrontation outside the Infield Care Center with Taylor Gray and Sammy Smith. I think every single car in the field had some sort of incident at some point today. There was a massive pileup on the last lap. And as I said, here is the caution chart. Look at it. I know. We have future Hall of Famers, NASCAR drivers criticizing it. Yeah, as it should be. So Austin Hill stole a win today. I believe it's his first Martinsville win, but the Xfinity Series race, just in case you didn't know, it got a little crazy today. If I didn't emphasize that enough in the intro, if we're calling that an intro. Have you seen the caution chart today? Look at this thing. Oh my goodness, so many cautions. So let's start with the end. Because frankly, if I go through every single incident, I will be here till Monday at 8:36 a.m. and it's currently Saturday at 7:16 p.m. Okay, into this race. This race has been ridiculous. Crashes all over the place. It's a handful of guys who haven't been involved in incidents. We've had Taylor Gray, who has really dominated the back half of this race. And despite the chaos, he has driven masterfully. He has launched perfectly on every restart. He has cleared the field. He has run away. He has done every single thing right in this race. And then one of these late race restarts, I don't know which one. It's too hard to keep track of. He gets pushed up the track by Sammy Smith. Sammy Smith, a typical Martinsville bump and run, shoves him up the racetrack and runs on by. Taylor Gray trying to get by. Again, there's a caution again. So can't get back to him. Well, the following restart, Taylor Gray lines up right behind Sammy Smith. Sammy Smith didn't exactly race Taylor Gray clean, so I guess it's game on. Sammy Smith, if you're going to bump me out of the way, I'm going to bump you out of the way. And Taylor Gray did it as nicely as possible. Bumps him out of the way, gets the lead back, tries his best to run away. In fact, I would argue he did run away. Though Sammy Smith decided to commit what some would call vehicular terrorism on Taylor Gray. And he sent it from, I don't know how far back, I'm not even going to estimate, way farther back than it is possible to make that corner at Martinsville, wrecks Taylor Gray, wrecks himself, and triggers a massive pileup. I would compare this to what Austin Dillon did last year. Very good comparison if you ask me, but there was no way, if that 54 car is not there, if Sammy Smith sends it like that without a car there, he's almost hitting the wall at Martinsville, which that's how bad he missed that corner. He literally used Taylor Gray as his brakes. Egregiously just wiped out Taylor Gray, and the reasoning behind it's even worse. He said that he was flipping him off. Taylor Gray was flipping off Sammy Smith under the red flag. Wow. What great reasoning to go out and just wipe someone out. Incredible logic. He said he didn't want to do the move, but then he tried to defend it with the flipping off and saying that Taylor Gray would have done the same thing. I'm not sure about that. I don't know much about Taylor Gray and how he races, but I'm going to take a wild guess and say he wouldn't send it from that far back to obliterate you. Unless you did something that's worth obliterating, which in this case, when we go to Darlington next week, if you get obliterated by Taylor Gray, it's deserved. Hate to break it to you, Sammy Smith, but it's deserved. But the absurdity, to the end of some of these races. This is usually the level of absurdity we see in the fall race at Martinsville because there are championship implications. Drivers trying to get one extra point to advance. Drivers trying to win because they have to win. They make a bold, if you want to call it that, a courageous, if you want to call it that, desperate, definitely can call it that, move that they feel like they have to make in order to advance, rather than settling for second and saying, "Oh shucks, we could have done a little bit more throughout the day." And it's a point, oh man, who made this point? Someone made this point a few weeks ago that drivers these days, they would rather wreck themselves and wreck the leader than finish second and take home a good points day. That is the style of racing we have now. That is the way things are. That finish just perfectly encapsulated that. Sammy Smith would have rather wrecked himself and Taylor Gray than finish second and take a damn good points day home. Yeah. Before this incident, Denny Hamlin tweeted out that Martinsville is a track that could use would be the proper, we're not here to talk about grammar, avoidable contact penalty. Now look, something I love about NASCAR is that we can make a little contact every once in a while. We can bump and run. We can hit doors, and it's not the end of the world. I think it's a good thing that we can do that and not get penalized. You know, someone gets bumped out. Someone gets spun out on an accident. It's an incident. It's a simple, just someone messed up. Nothing egregious. Nothing absurd. Just two guys fighting hard for position, and something went wrong. I'm glad we do not penalize every single one of those incidents. However, we're reaching a tipping point that we don't need to be at. NASCAR, as I said, has always been great about letting drivers race things out, letting them beat and bang, bump and run, whatever you want to do. But there's a level, there's a point of absurdity. And this might be an overreaction, but I feel like we've reached this point. I don't like it when NASCAR gets involved in things. I don't like when NASCAR has to make calls on anything ever because it puts them in a bad position, because regardless of what they decide, whether it's right or wrong, you're going to have a good chunk of the fan base mad, and it's going to stir up controversy. We're going to be talking about it for weeks or months or years, and it's just, we drag it out more than it needs to be drug out. But there is a level of absurdity that needs to be punished. The only way to punish drivers for actions like what Sammy Smith did, take points away. Suspensions, I don't know if that's quite worthy of a suspension, but take points away. Fine them if you have to. Fining may not be the greatest thing, because at the end of the day, the drivers they'll more than make up for that for their own personal winnings, but take points away, honestly. The only way you're going to teach these drivers to not make overly aggressive, stupid, bad moves, ugly moves that will influence the future generation of race car drivers like that, the only way to punish them and make sure that doesn't happen again is you either sit them out or you take points away from them. That's about the only way I think you can. And NASCAR hasn't really punished anything like this historically except for the Austin Dillon thing, but that's because it involved right-rearing Denny Hamlin. They didn't really penalize the Logano thing, they penalized the Hamlin thing. But I think we've reached a point. If it's egregious enough, if it's absurd enough, if it's over the top, if it's detrimental in a sense to racing, and not just necessarily today, not just necessarily next week or 2 weeks from now at Bristol, detrimental to 10-year-old kids who are racing go-karts, 10-year-old kids or 14-year-old kids who are racing late models, whatever it may be, who are watching that and going, wow, I'm a Sammy Smith fan. I just watched my favorite driver obliterate someone to try to win. I need to try that now. I need to have that mindset. And it's just going to continue to snowball until it's happening all the time. So Denny Hamlin's not wrong in a sense. Should we have this every week? No. Should it be enforced every week? No. Should it be enforced on every incident? God, no. But when someone is sending it from this far back to intentionally wreck someone to win a race, action needs to be taken. Whether it's, let's say this happens with 8 to go in the race. 8 laps to go, Sammy Smith does this. You park him for 2 laps and essentially end his chances at winning, and that would be taking 20 to 30 points away from him. But in this case, since it was the last lap, you could disqualify him and drop him to last, or drop him to the end of the lead lap, which I don't even know how many cars that was. Would have dropped him to 29th, and that's where Taylor Gray finished. So, hey, I think that's a fair penalty. That's 28 points away from Sammy Smith in a sense, or 15. I think he ended up finishing 14th or something. Or, yeah, you suspend him, you drop points. If you want to do in-race action, you can park him for a couple laps, or you can park him permanently, or you could just drop him to the tail end of whatever lap he's on. So it's absurd. It's ridiculous. When we have all these current NASCAR drivers and other people talking about it, it's just beyond a point. And back to the punishment part, think about it like this. I'm going to try to put it in simple terms. If a little kid keeps on doing something wrong, let's say little Bobby over here keeps on shoving little Timmy on the playground, okay? Every time little Timmy gets within arm's reach, little Bobby just shoves him over, okay? And the teacher just keeps on looking at this in the playground saying, hey, we don't like that, little Bobby. You can't do that, okay? Now we can't be having that. You got to do that better. If you're going to play, make sure it's not as rough, but you can still play with little Timmy. What's that going to do? Little Bobby's just going to keep doing it over and over. He's going to keep bullying and shoving little Timmy. Well, okay. You know how you stop little Bobby? You say, hey, little Bobby, time out. Go sit in the corner. You're done for the day. You can't play anymore. That'll teach him to stop, because little Bobby's going to want to continue to play. But if he can't, he's been punished. He's had something taken away from him. Or you could take away his, I don't know, what's the elementary school version of points? Take away his grade? Take away his crayons? Something like that. I feel like that was a simpler way to put it. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. This is just ridiculous. The Xfinity series has been a great racing series. They put on some great shows at so many different styles of tracks, but this is just absurd. Today was a joke. It was a monstrosity. It was a horrid race. I don't remember, outside of that first run that was like 54 laps, I don't remember a single 30-lap run. These guys couldn't race clean. They couldn't race side by side without someone getting spun out, wrecked, road raging, whatever you want to call it. Even the winner, Austin Hill, in his post-race interview had to apologize for taking out his teammate because him and Christian Eckes were having a pissing battle in the middle of the race, and as a result, Austin Hill sent Eckes into his teammate and wrecked him. So Austin Hill wins, had to apologize for wrecking someone, but at the same time, he was one of 893 drivers to wreck someone tonight. So, yeah, tonight was a joke. It was absurd. Curious to see what NASCAR does or if they do anything. But, yeah, that was really, really bad. Once again, let me know your thoughts. Tomorrow we got the Cup race, which please be more tame.